Welcome to They're Out of Their Minds. Who Are They? Brought to you by your host, Shannon Jordan. Hello, everyone. We left off last episode where the Parkers had come over for dinner. But right before they left, Scott was still outside. Mike and Samantha were out front, so it was just me and Janine. She sat at the dining room table and had her chair facing me. I was at the stove. And all of a sudden, this strange voice came out of her. I hope you can take a lot of pain. And she just glared at me with the look of death, like I'm going to kill you. I was like, whoa. Like, again, this is like the second time I'd heard this voice. Just a completely different voice, like a man almost. Evil. And then she got up and went into the living room. And there's a kitchen wall there. Then she popped her head back over and said, I have a patient who wants to go to Bali before she dies, like that. Then I backed up and I'm like, oh my God. I had just told Scott the day before, Scott, I'm making a bucket list and I want to go to Bali before, I kick the bucket. And I meant to say Bora Bora, but Bali came out of my mouth. That's when I knew they were definitely listening in on my phone and in the privacy of my own home. And I truly believe that they were able to see me somehow. This woman had just threatened my life and told me I was going to be tortured. Yes, it was in other words. And inference was kind of used when she was talking about that she had a patient that wanted to go to Bali, but the message was still received. Inference is like, I'll give you an example. Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes. Well, everybody knows that fish don't sleep. So the only time fish sleep is when they're dead. After they had left and I started to clean up, I was looking around in the bedrooms and stuff, and all kinds of things, my stuff were moved around in different positions, in different parts of the room. I kind of figured out what they were doing. It's called gaslighting somebody. Gaslighting. The phrase to gaslight someone is to deliberately drive someone insane by psychologically manipulating their environment and tricking someone into believing that they are insane. I want to do a flashback into before that we had moved into the home, which was only a half a mile down the street from the Parkers, to when we were living in Harahan in a condo. I was coughing up blood, and like I told you before, Janine was never my doctor. I was coughing up blood. This was 2012. So I decided, she is a pulmonologist, so she's an expert in the lungs. I decided I would make an appointment with her. Thinking maybe she would, since she's Scott's stepmother, would tell me what was wrong and tell me what's inside me. I thought she'd be honest. Anyway, I made an appointment with her. I waited and waited and waited. Scott was with me. They did all my vitals. Then said they were going to send me down to x-ray. They got a full frontal x-ray. Waited. She never came out. She then we were told that she was in closed quarters with her attorney. Meanwhile, they were hiding patients in the bathroom. So when Scott and I were sitting there, it's like, we might as well just leave. A woman walks up. And to my surprise, there she was, the nurse that was at my original procedure at Tulane. the same nurse that was at another procedure at Ochsner Hospital, the one that gave me a copy of the upper endoscopy pictures that I told you about, the one that said, I'm not your nurse, I don't work here, and I could get so fired for giving this to you, but you got to see it. Well, at that point, I thought she was kind of helping me. But as I go on, you'll find out why they did that. But she was the same nurse. And then she was also at another procedure where I had an MRI on the West Bank, 20 miles away. Which they never gave me the results of that either. So she was having her nurse be like a little spy. When I realized it was her nurse, the same nurse that I'd seen over and over and over again, I said, come on, Scott, let's get up, let's go. So I never saw Janine. She had my x-rays. And like I said before, then she was never my doctor. And I don't really consider her my doctor at that point either, because she never came out to treat me or diagnose me or even see me at all. She called me a couple days later, not even for a follow-up appointment, just said, oh, you're fine. There's no problem there. So she did see my x-rays, and she did see what was inside of me and didn't say a word. I kept thinking about this over and over, about this woman that I'd seen at several different procedures. Ochsner, Tulane, Dr. Monat's office with the MRI, and then lastly at Janine Parker's office, in her office. And then I heard her voice. She was the woman that kept answering the phone when I was calling attorneys. The one that yelled at me. The one that said, what do you expect to get out of this? Then I knew that Janine Parker had done this to me. And I remembered back in 2006, her talking about the razor laser, and it all made sense. She had used me as her guinea pig and was gaslighting me and tormenting me. Okay, by now we're at the beginning of 2014. I needed some groceries, so I called a cab. That was really before Uber and Lyft had, was on the North Shore over here. So I called a cab, and a woman with kind of golden blonde hair came to pick me up. And I said I was going to Walmart. So we arrived at Walmart in the parking lot. She parks the car and says, I think I'll go in with you. I'm like, oh, okay, thinking she needed to get something. So we walked in, and the woman is walking directly by my side. Wasn't looking for anything for her. Never left my side for a second. That the whole thing, like she was escorting me around Walmart. She didn't get anything. So on the cab ride home, when I got to the door, I said, well, how much do I owe you? She goes, $15. And I looked up, and I'm like, wow, there's not even a meter in here. And then I looked up at her again, and I said, oh, shit. She was one of the women that I'd waited on at a breakfast place that a lot of cops frequent. She was one of Mike Parker's friends. She was a cop. And I wondered why I took the cab. So 2 hours to come get me. Nothing was in town. They weren't very busy. What it was, she's a New Orleans police officer on her off day and came all the way from New Orleans to take me to Walmart. Remember how I told you in earlier episodes, how do you kidnap someone without them knowing that they're kidnapped? Well, this is exactly what they did to me. They quarantined me pretty much by getting me on my devices. I'm positive that they had installed cameras in my home, which cybersecurity is going to come out here and find. And sending people to make sure, she was making sure that I wasn't getting another phone or another computer. They had illegally quarantined me without my knowledge, secretly. It's called an illegal medical watch. She didn't want me to leave until she had her study done, I guess, for her machine to see if it actually worked. Okay, since I was on disability and we had moved and I never was going to go to Ochsner Hospital again, I needed a primary doctor. So, of course, still not knowing how they were doing this, sending me to people in their organization, but you will soon find out how they did it. I looked up a doctor on the internet, and one name just kept popping up. Well, of course, there was others down the list in the search engines. I did call other doctors, and they would say, oh, we're not taking any new patients right now. But not knowingly, I was calling their call center. So I actually wasn't calling any doctor's office. They wanted to direct me to the doctor they wanted me to see who was within their organization. Anyway, I chose Miss Tanya Levy. I started seeing Dr. Levy in Covington. She became my new primary physician, and she diagnosed me with diabetes type 2. She seemed like a really nice woman. I mean, very personable, real southern accent, real small. Seemed like a normal, sweet doctor. And she would hug me and then feel my back up and down. At first I thought she was just the sweetest doctor on earth. I was just hugging me and, whatever. But she was actually trying to feel my back for a wire or a recording device. She also, too, would repeat things that I said in my own home. I used to play with my cat and with the string, with the little catnip animal on the end of it and go back and forth, say, toy, toy, toy. So one day I was in Miss Levy's office. She's like, where's my toy, toy, toy? Exactly. She was letting me know that they were listening. So when I started asking her, I go, I think I have something inside of me that was put in me illegally. She immediately said, you're not crazy, are you? Don't say another word. So I shut the fuck up. After diagnosing me with diabetes type 2, she gave me a medication that was an injectable, where you inject it into your skin. I went over to Mike Parker's and Janine Parker's house, and all he could talk about is, you're taking your medicine? You're taking your medicine? I'm like, why does he care if I'm taking my medicine? And I said, yeah. And I lied. I really wasn't. I didn't like the idea of injecting anything into my body. And he said, good. It only takes 2 weeks. I was like, what only takes 2 weeks? Takes 2 weeks to cure diabetes type 2? Takes 2 weeks to lose 100 pounds? Then I know. I had met a man in Sam's Wholesale who was talking to me and telling me that the same exact medication had been pulled from the market because it was giving people heart attacks in Europe. So that's what he was talking about. It only took 2 weeks to give me a heart attack. It was like a gluey-like substance. Something like that would definitely clog up your arteries and most likely give you a heart attack. They wanted me to have a heart attack so I'd go back into the hospital so they could put me under anesthesia again and take out the evidence. I found out that Miss Levy was Janine Parker's, Janine Parker was her research assistant in college. Go figure. Just another one of their people in their organization. So, and every time I was there and in the waiting room, people would be taking pictures of me sitting in the waiting room and say weird shit to me, like, they're reading your mind and it's really deep. It's like, what? Weird people saying weird stuff to me. I mean, Like one lady, she was seemed very nice. She was an archaeologist's wife, or lawyer's attorney. Sorry, she was the archaeologist. I said, "Do you like Ancient Aliens?" And I said, "Yeah, I love Ancient Aliens. I watch it all the time." She's like, "Good." She goes, "Because if you don't, it's Into the Woods." Later on, you'll find out what Into the Woods means. Anyway, after that, I finding out that that medication would do nothing but give me another heart attack. I stopped seeing Miss Levy. And at that point, I was on, still on disability, and I had a disability review. Well, when I went to, and I told Miss Levy a month before that they're going to be sequestering my medical records for my disability review. So when I went to my hearing, they denied me my disability solely on the fact of not having my records. They said when they went to get my records, it was the warehouse's mistake. She had refused to give up my records because she had pre-advance notice. She did not give up my medical records. So I lost my disability. And they blamed it on some they're at the warehouse and we don't have medical records for Shannon on this certain date. But yet they had all my medical records, and that's what they were requesting, was all my medical records from Miss Levy. But they said it on a certain date. Put the wrong date, which is bullshit. She knew that it was coming. She knew that my disability hearing was coming. They did this on purpose. Okay, before I went to my disability hearing, I had to go to an orthopedist to get him to sign off on my leg injury. That was part of my disability, as well as, the diabetes type 2, plus, still recovering from coronary artery disease is what I was diagnosed with. Anyway, I went to Dr. Plochet. Then come to find out, he was the surgeon that did Mike Parker's knees. Yet again, another doctor that was in their organization. I went in to see him, and before I could see him, I was interviewed by a nurse. She said, "What are you?" Looked like Nurse Rat. She looked evil, long dark hair, big green eyes and glasses, real tall, real evil looking, white skin. She asked me, "What are you here for?" I'm like, "I'm here to get my leg, my foot, my ankle x-rayed, and my back." She's like, "You're not going to get your back x-rayed today, are you?" I said, "Yeah, that's what I'm here for." "No, you're not going to get your back x-rayed today, are you?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what No, you're not." I'm like, okay. I guess I'm not getting my back x-rayed today. She's like, "Okay, great, he can be your doctor." So, and then when I saw my foot x-ray, I was looking at somebody else's x-rays. They didn't have enough pins in the x-ray. And he would sit there the whole time and talk to Scott. Never said one word to me. Not one word. Because that's really all I was there for, was some x-rays and notes for him to sign off on my disability. But still, they showed me someone else's x-rays. In January of 2014, Miss Levy had sent me to, wanted me to go, actually she asked me, "Do you snore?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, okay, I want you to go to this doctor for sleep medicine. It'll help you with the snoring, and it'll also help you lose weight." So she referred me to a Dr. Lauren Davis, who I went and did a sleep study. And during the process, that's where you wear the electrodes and you sleep in a cap, and they study your brain waves and your sleep patterns and your REM state. Well, before putting the cap on and doing the study, guy took this tool and started shoving things underneath my scalp. Like, I asked him, I go, "Is this normal? I mean, this really hurts." And he said, "Yeah, this is exactly normal." Well, when I went home, I had blood droplets all over my cuts, all over my head, like exactly where the electrodes would have been. And Scott did the same exact sleep study with the same doctor. They didn't shove these fiber optic wires underneath his head. Later on, you'll find out what they were and what they were used for. When you look up Lauren L. Davis, MD, on the North Shore for Pontchartrain Sleep Medicine, that's exactly where I went, and Scott. 2 different experiences for the same study. They should have been exactly the same. Anyway, the woman that you see in the picture says that that's Lauren Davis. That is not the woman who claimed to be Lauren Davis when we went to our sleep study. Even Scott was a different doctor. But she said she was Lauren Davis. And if you look at the picture, you could tell she's obviously a post-op tranny, transgender. You can see the Adam's apple in one picture, then the next picture you can see where it's shaved. But this is not the Lauren Davis that treated myself and Scott, but who claimed to be Lauren Davis. Before I had to go to my disability hearing, I had to go to one of their doctors, not my own doctors that were referred by Tanya Levy. So that's how they prove whether you're disabled or not. You have to go to their doctors. So I went to one of their doctors who was down the street, and he definitely said that I did not have scoliosis whatsoever. So that definitely proves that Dr. Keating from Ochsner was showing me another person's x-rays. I've never had scoliosis. So anyway, like I said, I did lose my disability solely on the fact that Miss Levy refused to give up my medical records. It was still a part of this big cover-up. And every doctor I saw, including Lauren Davis, I was told that Janine and Lauren Davis were very good friends. They met at the YMCA and scuba diving lessons. So every doctor had a link to Janine Parker. Like, there's so many doctors in New Orleans and Southeast Louisiana. How can they all know Janine Parker and be, like, completely linked as associates? Well, you'll find out how. And it's all done with smoke and mirrors and a lot of computer hacking. These people are brilliant, but they're brilliant criminals. Since I lost my disability, I definitely didn't have any income. So Scott told me about LRS, Louisiana Rehabilitation Services, where they put disabled people back to work, And so I went there and I had to sign this contract stating that I had to go to the doctor at least every 3 months. So if I wanted to work, that's what I had to do. So I went to LRS. They did all kinds of testing, personality testing, and what my skills were. They seemed to be like really nice people. They were next to the police station, which I found kind of funny. I mean, right next door. They had assigned me to one social service person. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they changed me to another woman. Said her name was Wendy Appling Patterson. And said she wanted to talk to me and bring my resumes to her, and she was going to go out and look for me a job. So I met up with this Wendy person at the Outback Steakhouse, and I brought my resumes to her, which, of course, I'm a graphic, well, at the time, I wasn't a graphic designer, but I'd made my own resumes. And I gave her, 50 resumes. So we're sitting there, and she's asking me, what I do, and I thought she looked very strange. She looked like she had contacts on. She looked like she was 500 pounds. but the fat didn't jiggle properly. It jiggled kind of like a pillow or foam or something. And then I noticed, what looked like she was wearing a wig. Then somebody that's 500 pounds, you're going to be fat all over. You're going to have a waddle. Your fingers are going to look like sausages. But there was no waddle. Nice, clean jawline. Fingers as thin as they could be. And I kept looking at this woman. And I noticed her hands. Something extremely familiar about them. And then I saw her necklace. And I knew I'd seen that necklace somewhere before. It was Janine Parker in disguise, pretending to be this Wendy Appling Patterson and wearing a freaking fat suit. This is like something out of a movie. People in disguise. She wanted to make sure that I didn't get a job, so I couldn't save money to leave. It was a pretty good disguise because she fooled me for the first 30 minutes, but I kept looking at her and noticed her chest had this fat suit. Had, of course it went from the neck down, had extremely large breasts, but the skin didn't look like real skin. And I kept saying, this looks like Janine. This is Janine. So then come to find out, when I did my research, after I'd left there, I called the real Wendy Appling Patterson. Wendy Appling Patterson never worked for LRS. And I spoke to her husband, and he is definitely willing to testify against this person and LRS, stating that his wife never worked there. He said it would be his pleasure to. He lives in Tampa. They both live in Tampa. They were here in Slidell for a little while. But definitely, Wendy Appling Patterson never, ever worked for LRS. She was Janine in disguise. This woman has lost her mind. She's got like 7 different personalities, and you'll find out she's worn disguises around here, lurking in these houses where they're doing this illegal watch on me, which I call a nest. She is completely out of her mind. She'll do anything to cover up what she did, including dressing in disguise. I'm not crazy. I've had a psych eval. This woman belongs in an institution for the criminally insane. And like I told you, her mother was put away in a criminally institution for the insane for being so incredibly mean. Well, her daughter, certainly, that gene was definitely passed down. So I waited and waited and waited to hear from her, thinking hopefully, she could get me a job, even though I knew it was Janine. I didn't know if it was some kind of joke or what, but obviously not. She wanted me to not get a job so I would save my money and leave. So, but I never got one call back, never one email from any employer for an interview, nothing. She tried to interfere because she was afraid that I would leave and go get proof elsewhere, or hire an attorney and just, then she would definitely be going to prison. Okay, this is just getting weirder and weirder and weirder. This cover-up is extended from every single hospital in Southeast Louisiana. Doctors dressing up like other people in disguise, showing me other people's x-rays, not giving up my medical records, all to cover up this medical device this doctor has put inside of me. Wow. Stay tuned for my 4th episode. They are completely out of their mind.